All right, ladies, we are live and I'm so happy. I want to welcome you guys to another self-love conversation. You know, we do this every Tuesday and Thursday where we sit down with the best of the best, ladies, and we sit down with people who can help us navigate through this journey called life and help us navigate through growth. And check this out is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I am actually joined by an amazing therapist, Mr. Fonz, the therapist. Now, Fonz, we don't have that many men that come to our platform. So when
Ooh,
we do, we get all excited.
feel special and flattered.
Oh, but Mr. Alphonso Nathan is a therapist, ladies, and he is going to give us and bless us with some of his time tonight because we're going to talk about men's mental health. So I want you to not actually just pay attention, but also, take away some things that you could take back to your spouse or your family member who are male, who might be suffering with mental health or don't know they're battling with mental health. So, Alfonso, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's definitely a blessing and a pleasure to be able to talk with you, especially on this wonderful month. My favorite month because it's actually my birthday month.
Oh, well, happy
I was born to
birthday. When
do
is
this.
it?
May 27th. I'm
Oh, almost then. Yeah.
yeah, I'm almost there.
Okay. All right. So, as women, we always want to know and try to get in the brain of a man. Always, always. Right.
There's not much there.
Especially when it comes to dealing with mental health and relationships and things like that. So, I guess my first question is when you are doing what you're doing as a therapist and you're talking to a lot of men,
Yeah.
what are some of the common things that you run into as it relates to them actually getting therapy and dealing with their mental health?
Absolutely. I do talk with a lot of men, and I pride myself in that because representation is so key. Um, Common thing that I always get is first they're not used to this, meaning they're not used to speaking about their feelings because us as men, especially Black men, one we're a population that needs therapy the most, but we seek it the least, right?
Mhm.
And that's because of that generational curse of us thinking that showing vulnerability and showing your emotions and feelings is a weakness, is a girl trait. But in
Right, right,
reality,
right.
it takes a lot of strength. So a lot of men they're just not used to just even talking. They're not used to talking deep. A lot of it is surface level. Talk about sports. So initially we talk about surface level things like sports and music, and then we start digging deep.
Mm-hmm.
And the amazing thing when I talk with my men who open up and are vulnerable, it's so therapeutic. It feels like there's a weight lifted off of them. And they say it. I say 70% of them say, man, I feel like there's a weight lifted off of me because they just dump because they understand now this is a safe space and they
Right.
can be able to express themselves. So the key is making sure my men feel safe and comfortable with my, not only my expertise, but I'm not going to utilize the information they're giving me to weaponize it in the future, because that's the biggest concern that they always have.
Okay. So, as much as we women always say you can talk to me, I can, I'm here for you, I'm with you. Is
Absolutely.
there still that inside of the mind when especially, because we always try to figure out like if you can't talk to me, then
Well, the thing is that there is always an opportunity for that. Every man gives a window of opportunity to show vulnerability. But what happens is that there's usually a time where the information was given to the woman,
Mhm.
or to a significant partner, and it gets flipped back on them in an argument,
Mhm.
and it gets weaponized.
Mhm.
And then that's when they shut down. See, that's why I don't say anything. That's why I don't show my feelings. That's why I don't do these things. And then they shut down.
Gotcha.
So that's why I hear a lot from my men who don't feel comfortable with expressing themselves
Mhm.
as a past experience,
Mhm.
you know.
And so now that you're in a space, I love the fact that you are creating a space for men. And so many men that has been coming to us in the I'm Loving Me project to, express that they too are doing the work when it comes to mental health.
Yeah.
What is the biggest thing that you see Black men dealing with in mental health? Uh, because,
Mm-hmm.
like I said earlier, we're as a woman, we're trying to work on ourselves
Mm-hmm.
to try to connect, to be better mothers, to be better wives, and
Mm-hmm.
to really be able to grow so we can build this family unit. I tell my ladies, you're like the church,
Mm-hmm.
right? You do the nurturing. You make sure that you keep everything together.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that you see with the men, what is the big mental health things that you see with them? Is it the low self-esteem? Is it the anxiety, the depression?
Yeah, I see it all. I see trauma.
Mm,
Um, realizing individuals were molested or sexually abused and they didn't know because, they were 10 years old, 11 years old, and they've had a sexual encounter with an older woman.
mhm,
And, in society, they were thought, they were said that that was a rite of passage, but in reality, that was sexual assault.
mhm, mhm.
Um, I see depression in men, and it comes out in a different way. It comes out in anger. It comes out in isolation and shut down. It doesn't. Not every man, because a lot of times when people think of depression, they think of it as laying in your bed and crying. But
Exactly.
depression can be overworking, staying, working, 25 hours, 24 hours a day,
Mhm,
just to escape the thoughts. I see anxiety, and anxiety, can be masked from drug use,
yeah.
the over amounts of weed smoking, the over amounts of drinking. And, I see a lot of thoughts of suicide. Black men, the suicide rate has increased drastically since the
That was
pandemic.
gonna be my next, yeah, that
Uh,
was gonna be my next question. Like where that came from. Like, is it because of the change in life? Is it that, the news was like, you staying home more, so you around your family more, right?
well,
Like,
yeah. What happened was a lot of us men, in order for us to we're taught to just escape and just go to work and just go do something else. So a lot of people were just busy. They just kept themselves busy.
yeah.
But the pandemic made you sit with your thoughts. And because Black men, we're a population that don't go to therapy, these other populations, when they sat, they called their therapists.
Yeah.
But for Black men, they sat, they couldn't go to the barbershop. They couldn't go and chill and talk with their friends. So they sat with their thoughts. And that was a scary thing. That was for the first time for a lot of people that had to sit with what was going on with them.
Mm,
And so much trauma from just watching the news, watching somebody that looks like you getting murdered,
mhm,
and you feel like everybody hates you,
mhm.
and so it's a lot to keep in. And the thing is, when you keep in these feelings, people think that it stays in, but
Right.
there's this thing called the law of conservation of energy. And it
Mhm,
says that energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only transfer, right?
mhm.
So keeping it in is like blowing up a balloon, and it's blowing up without letting any air out. Eventually, what's going to happen to the balloon?
It's gonna pop.
It's going to pop, and it pops in different things in different ways. Pops in unhealthy behavior, screaming, yelling, putting holes in the wall, and putting holes in people.
Mm,
And that's what we're saying. So we
mm,
need a lot of healing. And myself and many other of my Black male therapists, where we're trying to do our best to provide as much representation and services to help our men.
I'm enjoying this conversation so much because we as Black women, we want to be able to help,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, we feel like we are shut out and we don't know why. And we don't know how to break through that barrier.
Yeah.
You know, Alfonso, it's like you met somebody, you get into a marriage, you believe everything is going to go well, you find out that they had trauma, right? You had trauma,
Yeah.
now it's coming out, right?
Yeah.
So one person goes for healing, the other one says they don't need it, and then now you're trying to figure out how you can connect, right? I have plenty of women who husbands died of suicide, who had chronic depression, who, you know, have done so many things. And one of the things that we say is that I wish I would have known. I wish I could connect more, right?
Absolutely.
There is there a secret? How do you make the male feel safe so that he can open up? Is it that he needs to be around other males? Because that's what we're finding. Like if you're in with a group of males, you got to get past the surface, like you said, because you're looking around like, I don't know these people. I don't need to be here.
Yeah.
Whatever this is bullshit. I would rather be at home, right? And 9 times out of 10, your girl or your wife told you to go. Right.
Well, the good part about this is what I'm loving this time right now is that, you know, there's a lot more representation for seeking out therapy, seeking out, you know, investing in your mental wealth. We have, you know, the Charlemagne the Gods, we have the Taraji Hensons, we have individuals that are out in the public eye that's pushing for therapy.
Right.
And now it's a lot easier to say, hey, you know, I think I need to talk with somebody now than it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. That's about providing those resources that us men feel comfortable with going to. I'm part of a couple organizations, Black Men Heal, which is a great organization in the Philadelphia area, in the tri-state area. They provide actually 8 free therapy sessions to Black men 18 and up. And also they do a weekly men's group called King's Corner that's free. And it just talks about men's health, talks about different issues and different situations that men go through. They have different speakers every single week, and not to mention it's free. So that's actually usually a first step that I get people to go to, just to get a taste of what it is to show vulnerability.
It's hard to get them to come out.
But it's a Zoom. It's a Zoom, so you don't got to go in. It's a every Sunday at 7. It's a Zoom meeting, and what happens is that's a good first step. And then people are like, okay, it's okay to be able to talk, because a lot of people that look like me, you know, I'm hearing similarities. Okay, I can be able to go get some more help. You know, so there's a lot of just different resources like that. I'm also you know, doing a docu-series called Healing the Culture.
I was going to get to that.
Oh,
tell us a little bit about it.
No, I'm a rambler out here, so no. My docu-series Healing the Culture, it's I'm very proud of, and I'm excited for it to come out. It's like you being a fly on the wall of a therapy session. And a lot of times people do not go to therapy because they don't know what therapy looks like, or they have a negative connotation of what therapy looks like. So what I did was, you know, I have a sit down with, you know, not only, you know, Black men, but, you know, individuals who are influencers, sports figures, and we have that therapy session and to talk about problems that other people might have been dealing with. I have an episode where I talk with this ex-rapper. He's also an influencer, but he was shot 9 times.
Wow.
And so we talk about gun violence and hood PTSD. I also talk with a former Seattle Seahawk and San Francisco 49er. And we talk about finding your identity after sports. So there's a lot of common topics that we talk about. And it's just a great show right now. So I'm very excited for it to be coming out in the near future once we sign this paperwork.
I get it. Like, I just think that at this particular time, like you said, it is so needed for what you're doing, because the gun violence now and the teen suicides and the teen depression is going up so much.
Yeah, it is.
Where you compare, I'm 43, right? So you compare how we were, I don't even know, like, I didn't even know I was in trauma when I was younger, right? Like the way we grew up in New York, you're in the Bronx, you playing outside, a couple of people might start shooting, you run in the building, you wait for it to be over, but then you go right back outside and play, right?
That's
you
how
go right back outside and play. And it was like nothing, right? It was like nothing.
Normalized.
Yeah, like you see it in the hallways, you see it, around you, who the addicts are, who's this, who's that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you grow up. And what they call that is, you got street smarts. Like you have that ability to be self-aware.
Yeah,
well,
you got that radar.
Yeah, I learned that ability though, because I always had to be aware and watch my back and do things like that.
Absolutely.
Right? So then that means I don't even know what it means to rest.
You
see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's very true. I agree. Listen, I'm originally from New York too. I'm from Staten Island. And I hear everything you hear, and the thing is, what I always say is, we can't control that. The trauma wasn't our fault, but the healing is our responsibility.
Absolutely.
So, a lot of things have happened in the past, and that doesn't mean that we allow the past to be the boogeyman and continue to allow those experiences to run our lives. Because right now it is that time for that change. It is that time to be able to not have that experience have so much strength over you and power over you, and it's time to heal.
So I would say, at least, speaking from a woman, because this is, a woman platform. You're married.
Yes.
You don't know if your husband experienced trauma or anything. But when he gets ticked off, he gets ticked off. You know that there's something that's not right. How do you start that conversation so that he won't start to shut down? Because we know it and we feel it, right? But we don't know how to start it so that we can start to get the help that we need. So what are some of your suggestions, even if it's just, like
there's some books that I think what I would recommend for our Black men who are feeling this way. A great individual, his name is Jason Wilson, has this wonderful book called Battle Cry. And he talks about exactly that, how he was initially a very angry man, and he felt that he had to hypermasculate in order to mask the hurt that he had in the past. And it's a great read. He has an audio book, and that's usually a good thing that I send, send to people, because they resonate from that, and that can open up a conversation. I think it's important for everyone to be able to go to therapy once in a while, even a couples therapy. I call it couples check-in, you know what I mean? And bring your spouse along.
Alphonso, it's hard to get them out. That's the thing. See,
but it's not about getting out. It's about, we got telehealth now. So it's you don't even have to go. You don't have to go in the office. You can be able to sit right in your living room and talk with a telehealth therapist. If the hardship of going to an office is going to be difficult, we have it in the right in your home.
And when they still say no, that's for you. You do that.
And just say just try one with me, because sometimes all I need is one. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like a skilled therapist, I just need to just give me 15 minutes of your time.
Okay.
And then that buy-in, starts to happen. Is that going to work for everybody? Probably, maybe not, because everybody are at different levels of healing.
Right.
But that's another way you can be able to do so. But
Mm-hmm.
having that, again, having certain books that can be read and provided for, again, that's why I'm doing the Healing the Culture docuseries, because
Exactly.
some people may not want to read a book or listen to an audio book. They want to see it.
See, right.
So that's the important piece. And the thing is, you have to be hiding under a rock to not not to see mental health out here.
Yeah.
So you'd be surprised, many men, they're already battling in their head, like, let me just see what this therapy thing is about.
Mm-hmm.
They're hearing their rappers talk about it. They're
Yeah.
hearing their radio personalities talking about it. It's everywhere. So you have to be very, very stubborn and very, very traumatized to ignore it. But you could, I've had sessions with hood people. I had sessions with men you wouldn't even think about going to therapy, and there's a reason why. Because after that first session, they just needed a good cry.
Gotcha.
After that first session, they just needed some understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And so behind that tough facade is a person that hurts a lot, or has been hurt a lot, that's been damaged, that's just hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to put that up, because that's what they knew in order to protect themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to give them new ways to be able to protect themselves, and to show just a good feeling, show love, all these things. So that's what this new type of therapy is about.
So how do when it comes to boundaries though, when you are, talking to these men and letting them understand what it means to form healthy boundaries, as we women talk about it all the time, where once you start this growth journey, once you start this healing journey, you got to be able to put boundaries in place,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right?
Absolutely.
And having these healthy boundaries are important. So when you are speaking to these men about boundaries, what are some of the things that you say?
Yeah.
Because to them it's like a shutdown and nothing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you teach that whole thing of boundaries where they can have healthy boundaries, say no, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's the thing is, with when you're dealing with a lot of men, there is a lot of pressure on them. There, with work, with being the breadwinner, trying to think that they're the breadwinner, and when they're not, that also messes with their ego.
mm,
Um, so boundaries is an important piece. Um, you're right. Saying no is a very important boundary, but after, it's also the aftermath of saying no without feeling guilty, saying no. And also a boundary that I talk with people about is knowing how to break these generational curses. So knowing to say no to a family member,
mm-hmm,
being able to not always have to run to your cousin's aid. You know
right.
what I mean? Because they're relying on you all the time. They use you as a crutch. So a lot of times, a lot of men, they feel that they're pulled in many different places because they feel everyone needs them. And we have to realize, I'll give an example. You know, Blockbuster Video. If I told you 25 years ago to invest $10,000 in Blockbuster Video, right? You'd be like, absolutely, because Blockbuster Video is a great investment. It was doing so well. This is back in the 90s, right? I tell you right now to invest $10,000 in Blockbuster Video, you look at me like I'm crazy, right?
Right.
That's because just we have to realize just because something had value back then doesn't mean it kept its value over time. That's with jobs, that's with people. And a lot of times we hold on to those old memories of our friends from back in the day, our family members from back in the day that
Speak on it.
that we owed them our lives, that did so much for me when I was 18, when I wasn't doing anything, but I'm 30 something now and I'm still holding on to that. But what have they done now? What have they done 3 months ago, 3 weeks ago, 3 years ago? Are they still this? Do they still hold the same value to you back then? So a lot of people aren't checking in with how they're investing their energy because they're still putting their energy to things and people that's not worth it anymore.
I got you. And we do know that men have a lot of stuff on their plate, right? We women always worry, are you gonna come home?
Yeah.
Right? We're always holding the idea in our head. We know you working hard. We know you out there doing your best. We know that you want to provide and be there,
Yeah.
right? We know you taking all that shit all day long
Mm-hmm.
and you just want to come home and you want to be able to relax,
Yeah.
right? But it's kind of like we want to make sure we can do that for you, but we need that communication so that we can understand how to do it.
Absolutely.
How a hot meal sometimes is not enough. But
Yeah.
what we know is that you took the man shit all day long. You don't want to come home to bullshit either. We get that.
Yeah. No, that's facts.
No, we get it.
Yeah.
And as a woman, we're saying, okay, well, I also want to be heard. Also want to be loved. I also want, the same things he want. Now, if I'm not getting that because he is thinking one way and I'm thinking another, then we're going in two separate directions.
Absolutely.
Right?
So
So
yeah.
go ahead.
So the important piece is understanding, and a lot of us know about this, about the love language, right? We have to understand our partner's love language and vice versa, because some people show their love through that act of kindness, like, all right, I'm going to cook for you. Some people do it through quality time or just affirmations. So understanding how each other shows love, that will help to continue to build that appropriate and healthy communication.
Gotcha.
But but also, listen, I also know that women also need to be respected. I know they have to be respected. You know what I mean? So I'm never going to promote, because I have a daughter. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and she's gonna grow to be somebody amazing. So I'm never gonna promote a woman if they're being disrespected and the relationship is not a healthy one, to try to figure out what she needs to do to make it healthy, because sometimes that man needs to be able to figure out on his own. And if that means having to leave, you gotta leave.
That was my next thing, because we stay because we believe we can help. We deal with it because we're like, we know he been through trauma. We know this happened, and we know this.
But what did I say? I said that the trauma may not be our fault, but the healing is our responsibility. And a lot of times, if we do not want, in order to learn, sometimes we need to be able to learn on our own. And if you're telling somebody, you got to do that, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, and they're not listening, then sometimes they need to figure that out.
Right.
Because if not, they're just going to rely on your prompts. It's like having a GPS compared to a map, right? go from a house to a new destination. The GPS is telling you turn left, turn right, U-turn. The moment you don't have that GPS, you don't know where you're going because you're just relying on the prompts. Also a map, you figure out the landmarks and the destination, you'll be able to get to your from your house to your destination in in a great manner, quality manner, but you'll be able to know about that road in that direction a lot longer. So understanding that, sometimes, men need to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's also our responsibility. We cannot always put that onus on our women, our Black women, because you guys are so used to doing that. That can also be a generational curse as well.
We talk about it all the time about how we got to be able to let go, right? Because grandma had a revolving door. The uncle could curse you out, granddaddy get drunk on a weekend, and everybody is in chaos. But you go to grandma's house, that door is open, she cooking a meal. Everybody, doesn't matter if you good, bad, ugly, whatever, she gonna take you in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you do for family. And I'm talking about Black households. You do for family. You gotta be there. These are your brothers and sisters. This is yours.
So we're going to break that generational curse now, because like I said, for the blockbuster video, right? That's just because somebody had value back then does not mean that they hold the same value now. The generational curse of saying that's your brother, that's your cousin, that's family. We all know he has his issues, but that's family. But what are his issues that he's touching on little girls, right? So I have to forgive him and allow and go on Thanksgiving dinner and pretend like nothing's happening. No, that we need to instill new boundaries in order to really heal. Because if you're just picking a scab without allowing it to heal, it's going to just be a deeper wound, and it's not going to heal. It's going to be very, very ugly. So the thing is, I'm from West Africa, so I'm real big with family, but I also understand that not everybody can have access to me.
That's right.
And that is protecting my peace. And that's what you guys need to do, protect your own peace. Because, if you allow everyone to have access to you, there are going to be people that's going to take advantage of that.
You will make me break this microphone.
I know that's right.
Because there's no other thing that I preach more than that. Because once you just get an ounce of your peace and you understand how important it is to you, you Absolutely. Don't want nobody to take that away. No. Especially with all the shit you trying to heal from and get past, because this new person you're trying to become, it is such a challenge to stay there and not go back. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. It is such a challenge to get in that mode where you're like, this is the new me now. Exactly. Because it's different, it's new, it's something that you didn't learn about, your parents didn't learn about, your grandparents didn't learn about. This is a new road, and new roads are hard to make. But guess what? Once you figure out how to make a new road, you can go anywhere and make a road. I know you want to spend time with your kids, so I definitely want to be able to do this again. I have some amazing brothers I want you to meet who wrote a book actually on sexual assault, and an amazing young woman, Marie Charles, she's on now. Daquan, he's one of the guys. Perfect. When I say that they are really out here making an impact, I really would like to do something where we just get men together and really have the direction of how do we participate and start the healing process for real. Absolutely. Right? No bullshit where it's just like, rah, rah, but really getting in that room and doing the work, because there are families at stake at this point.
I agree.
There are young kids' lives at stake at this point. You know,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you can, Alfonso, I can't put my finger on it as to was the suicide rate when we were coming up the same, or was it less, or did we
It,
have the amount of anxiety or what? Because to me it felt like, I don't know if we was hidden from that. All we had was don't do drugs, like just say
but
no, you know
well,
what I'm saying?
the thing is, the anxiety and those thoughts have always been there, but it just showed itself in different ways. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It showed itself in the, doing drugs. You know what I mean? People felt anxious, so they started doing, smoking more.
Mm-hmm.
People were depressed and angry, so they started killing.
Mm-hmm.
But it just wasn't identified as that. Now we have the identity of that, and we can understand why people are doing certain things. But also these young kids, they have a lot more to deal with than us, meaning they have a lot more access to information, right?
You're
So
100% correct. That is true.
it's a gift and a curse of that. And
Mhm.
also, this pandemic was very traumatic. And the reason why I say this is because for 2 years, close to 2 years, we were instructed to be inside the house,
Mhm.
right? Have go virtual. And for a lot of those kids, the school was a safe haven. The school was a place where they got meals and
Mhm.
got a positive role model. And now we took that away from them, and they had to stay in the house with a perpetrator, a molester, an abuser for 2 years. And then after it was done, like, okay, open up, you guys can go back outside without any trauma training, without any therapy. And then we expect there not to be killings. We expect there not to be, suicides. These kids, I see nothing but walk-in trauma when I look at Old Block in Chicago, when I look in Philly. I see nothing but trauma. And they don't talk about this because it's like, who do they talk to? So that's what's really happening right now. So I think, we all, the world needs to understand about the importance of mental health. And I think we need to have continued conversations like this, but also added resources for our kids, more representation, and all that other good stuff.
Well, I would love to participate and introduce you to some wonderful people where, we can really make an impact, and we can really, bring our resources and really just, have that forum, because even, outside of Black men, you got Black women, you got, our whole culture where we are making attempts to do something.
Yeah,
But to really make an impact, is like what you said, you got to normalize it. You got to normalize mental health, and
absolutely.
being able to be vulnerable and have these conversations. So how
Mhm.
can we follow you, get the
Yeah,
book, sign up for a therapy session, let
absolutely.
us know your location, because we got
Yeah,
some women on the platform who is from Philly,
word
and
up.
everything you got.
Yeah, no, you guys can follow me on Instagram at Fonz the Therapist. That's with a PHONZ. Fonz the Therapist. You can Google Alphonso Nathan. Therapy sessions, Brightside Counseling. That's outside of Philadelphia. Also, co-own a medical practice, Brightside Medical Associates. Look out for my book that's going to be coming up in the near future as well. Not Worth My Energy. A guide
Mm,
to overcoming stress, anxiety, and understanding your true potential.
I love that.
Yes, yes. Because I'm telling you, we all, that's all we are. We're energy. And
Yep.
so it's so important and so valuable. So if we know how important our energy is, why are we gonna waste it on people and time and situations that's not even gonna matter? You know what I mean? So a lot of times I'm like, listen, lions don't lose sleep over the opinion of sheep. You want to know why? A lion's chilling right there, and these sheep are laughing at the lion, saying the lion is so skinny, the lion is trash. The lion's not gonna care what the sheep has to say, right?
Mhm.
Why? Because he's a fucking lion.
That's right.
He's in a whole different level than the sheep. He's not gonna care what the sheep have to say. He doesn't need to waste his energy on that to prove to the sheep that he's the king of the jungle. So
All
you gotta
right.
have that lion mentality. So
Mhm.
anyway, I'm enough preaching for the day. I gotta go. Well, talk to my daughter. My daughter, she learned to watch a conto for the 110th time. So
Oh, well, I really did appreciate everything. And I really do want to be able to connect again. And I
absolutely.
appreciate you being here. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Let me know. Make sure
Absolutely.
everybody can make sure you continue to protect your energy and invest in your mental wealth. I appreciate you guys. And if you guys need anything, just hit me up. Alphonso Nathan, Fonz a therapist, healing the culture, not worth my energy, bright side, all those things you'll be able to reach to me. Okay.
All right. You have a good evening. Okay.
Thank you. You have a good one. I
All
see you.
right.
Bye.